Hello.
Greetings.
We are in the Proclaimer's book, new chapter, chapter 13. It's on page 172. The chapter is recognized by our conduct. We live in an era in which moral standards that were long respected, have been discarded by large segments of mankind. Most religions of Christendom have followed suit, either in the name of tolerance or with the argument that times are different and the taboos of earlier generations no longer apply. As a result, Samuel Miller, a dean of Harvard Divinity School, said, "The church simply does not have a cutting edge. It has taken the culture of our time and absorbed it. The effects on the lives of those who look to such churches for guidance has been devastating."
In contrast, when discussing Jehovah's Witnesses, l'Église de Montréal, which is Montreal Church roughly in English, the weekly bulletin of the Catholic Archdiocese of Montreal, Canada, said, quote, "They, that is Jehovah's Witnesses, have remarkable moral values. Large numbers of school teachers, employers, and government officials agree with that. What accounts for this reputation?" The Watchtower asks. Being one of Jehovah's Witnesses involves much more than holding to a certain framework of doctrinal beliefs and witnessing to others about these beliefs. Early Christianity was known as the Way, and Jehovah's Witnesses realized that true religion today must be a way of life. As was true in other things, however, the modern-day witnesses did not immediately achieve a balanced appreciation of what this involves. And I would have to say, before we go to the next subhead, they've already set up a straw man, which is Christendom is like this, and we are, by contrast, like this. We'll deal with that more extensively when we get to the next straw man.
Okay. Character or covenant, which, although they started with sound scriptural counsel about the need to be Christ-like, the emphasis that some of the early Bible students gave to character development, as they called it, tended to minimize certain aspects of real Christianity. Some of them seemed to be of the opinion that being genteel, always appearing to be kind and good, speaking softly, avoiding any display of anger, reading the scriptures daily, would guarantee their entrance into heaven. But these lost sight of the fact that Christ had given his followers a work to do.
This problem was firmly addressed in the article Character or Covenant, which, ? In the May 1, 1926 issue of the Watchtower. It showed that efforts to develop a perfect character, with quotes around perfect character, while in the flesh, caused some to give up in discouragement, but at the same time it produced a, quote, more holy than thou, unquote, attitude in others, intended to cause them to lose sight of the merit of Christ's sacrifice. After emphasizing faith in the shed blood of Christ, the article highlighted the importance of doing things, and that's in quotes too, in the active service of God to give evidence that one was pursuing a course pleasing to God. At that time, when much of Christendom still made a pretense of holding to biblical moral standards, this emphasis on activity strengthened the contrast between Jehovah's Witnesses and Christendom. The contrast became even more evident as moral issues that were becoming common had to be dealt with by all who professed to be Christians. So what's the second straw man? The Bible students.
Yeah.
They've just misrepresented what the Bible students believed and did.
But even when I read this, the very first sentence struck me as funny almost. They said, "We live in an era in which moral standards that were long respected have been discarded by large segments of mankind." Well, where did those moral standards come from? Who was teaching them?
The answer?
Christendom. So, and now you're going to say, and then the next sentence is ridiculous too. Most religions of Christendom have followed suit. Religions of Christendom. That's the phrase is wrong. It's just wrong.
Misguided. It's misleading,
not,
but it's just sheer stupidity.
Because you really believe in denominations as a different religion. You know, that Anglicans are different than Catholics, than Protestants, than Pentecostals. They're all Christians. They go to a denomination, but that doesn't make them think they're a different religion than other Christians.
So you could say Christendom is a religion if you wanted to. You could,
yeah.
Although that's not quite true. It's truer than what you say. Most religions of Christendom, they're denominations of Christendom.
Yeah.
So you've got the word religion wrong, and you've also denied a fact which we know better because we've been in Christendom for 37 or so years now. No, most Christians in Christendom haven't followed suit, that is, gone in the direction, drifted into the direction of wokeism, let's say, which wasn't even invented when this book was published. No, most have not. And that's why the quote from Samuel Miller, Dean of Harvard Divinity School, is misleading too. Because when he says the church simply does not have a cutting edge, he's talking about North American liberal Christianity. That's what he's part of if he's Dean of Divinity at Harvard. He's not talking about Christianity in Africa or Christianity in Asia or Christianity in South America. He's not even talking about Protestant North America in total, or even about North America in total, because he's leaving out the Catholics and leaving out the Orthodox and most Protestants as well.
Yeah.
So it's a total misrepresentation of reality.
Yeah.
It's a straw man.
You're talking about a small fragment of Christians the world over. You're not talking about, you're talking mostly about a problem that is becoming more evident in North America.
And Europe.
But within a certain people, the liberal churches.
Certain types of denominations, not Christian religion as a whole.
That's right.
Because by far the majority of Christians across the planet are now in Asia and Africa and South America. And it's true that the denominational churches are in decline for the most part, the older churches. But it's also true that even in North America and in Europe, evangelical churches are growing like crazy. And Pentecostals, Baptists, Brethren, etc., as well as Orthodox, who are coming in great numbers into North America now. They all hold to the same standards of moral behavior as you do.
Yeah, so when they quote this Catholic bulletin about them saying about Jehovah's Witnesses they have remarkable moral values, they're not saying unlike us. That's not their point. Their point is they're holding to high morals, just like we are. We are holding to high morals.
Yeah,
but you wouldn't get that impression from this.
There's a great battle going on within Catholicism now, as there is within Anglicanism and Methodism, as to whether you should go woke or not. And so far, so good when it comes to the Catholic Church, even in North America. But the private opinions of Catholics and Anglicans and Methodists and Presbyterians might be something different. But the Church is holding to the ancient standards of moral belief.
Yeah, but then when they attacked the Bible students, the early Bible students that they kicked out, and say that they didn't have the right balance, that they came to appreciate that they needed to have a better balance. When they characterize them, they talk about them being character developers, that was their emphasis was on character development. Listen to the description. So they say they believed that you should always appear to be kind and good, speaking softly, avoiding any display of anger, reading the scriptures daily. Well, if anything, you just moved the teeter-totter right over to the other side. You didn't balance anything. If they were over-emphasizing one thing, you just discard that part and just emphasize doing things.
So now it's completely gone, this idea that God's judgment has something to do with your character, and even being a daily student of the Bible. I mean, how many Jehovah's Witnesses daily study their Bible? Yeah. You've actually then retrogressed since the days of the Bible students.
You might be daily reading the Watchtower, but reading the Scripture daily. Yeah, I'm sure there's some that read Scripture, but I don't I don't think the emphasis is on reading Scripture daily. It's reading the Watchtower.
And then you realize, well, this emphasis on activity, as if it's something new in 1926.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're misrepresenting the Bible students. They had distributed Russell's books to this point, 1926.
Mm-hmm.
They had distributed millions of Russell's books, as well as other Watchtower
so
publications
it's not
across the
characterizing
world.
what they believe. This thing about being guaranteed entrance into heaven, that's not what they believed.
And the fact that you could use this phrase in the third line there, it produced a more holy than thou attitude. What do you say to that?
Well, that's a description of Jehovah's Witnesses, and this book demonstrates it.
The whole book demonstrates
is that we're better than everyone else. So this is something else that they would say that.
But they, that is the Bible students, had distributed Russell's books all over the world, not the Bible. Don't forget, for most of those years, that's what they said Christendom was doing. We are distributing the Laodicean message from the Laodicean messenger all over the earth.
The divine plan.
The divine plan, yeah. So just so you were distributing Russell's message, and now you're distributing the governing body's message to everyone by your carts, etc. But Christendom, you admitted in those days at least, had already distributed the Bible all over the earth.
Yeah.
And they, by the way, are still doing that in a way that should make you ashamed if you're a Jehovah's Witness. They're about the Bible. The Bible societies are about the Bible. They don't distribute, generally, the books of their ministers all over the world.
Yeah. Then in the last part of that paragraph, they say, when much of Christendom still made a pretense of holding to biblical moral standards. Well, pretense is what you were holding, because you pretended you have no problems. None of the moral problems exist within the organization. Well, that's just been exposed now. It was a shock to me finding that out.
Yeah.
Because you kind of do think we were better than everybody else.
We even found out while we were still in about some of those moral problems.
Yeah.
They didn't become public knowledge yet, but you remember just recently you found out about child abuse that you knew nothing about that existed in your congregation.
Yeah. So it's hypocrisy to be picking on Christendom for the times when we find out about some immoral impurities within the largeness of Christendom. You can always find somebody who's doing wrong in anything. So do you say, oh, that's it, they're all bad, and just paint it for everyone?
Yeah.
There is going to be immorality within any organization, within schools. There's this problem. We don't say, well, that makes all teachers criminal.
By the way, even when we were leaving the Watchtower in the late 1980s, I knew already through what I was reading and seeing on television that the Jim Baker scandal was happening. And then the Jimmy Swaggart, and that's Pentecostalism. Who brought down Jim Baker? Pentecostals and a Baptist.
Yeah.
In other words, evangelicals were integrated into that.
So the exposure happens very frequently by the church itself.
Yeah, and that's not always the case. I don't want to be.
Yeah, it's not always the case, but a lot of times it is.
It is, because the people in the churches are far more autonomous than you are. So the hiding starts at the top in the Watchtower.
Yeah.
In Pentecostalism and in most Protestant churches, the hiding has to happen on a local level. So it still happens, but sooner or later it gets exposed.
So what happens within the organization is when these things happen, you're trying to protect the organization. So it's like, oh, no, we can't tell people that this has happened within the organization, because that would give us a black eye. That would be shaming the organization.
Yeah.
But you're not protecting anyone doing that. Then the organization is more important than the morals.
Yeah, and that's why this whole chapter, indeed this whole book, but especially this chapter, recognized by our conduct, now that sounds like a very loud noise in an empty room. because now you realize what 30 years has revealed about your
Yeah.
moral
Exposures
claims.
happened now, so this
Yeah.
was written in the 90s, yeah.
And what's our link?
We're linking Last Days began in 1799, insist Russell and Rutherford. Were Jehovah's Witnesses ever God's organization?
That's the playlist, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll put the playlist up, yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.